Hello, I'm Harry Glorikian, and this is the Harry Glorikian Show, where we explore how technology is changing everything we know about healthcare. Our smartphones are an irreplaceable part of our everyday lives. We use them to communicate, to shop, to navigate, to watch videos, to take pictures, to share our lives on social media, to track our exercise, to listen to music and podcasts. So why shouldn't our phones be the main interface to our healthcare experiences? That's the question PJ Jain started out with in 2010 when he left behind a career in networking and telecommunications to start a company dedicated to mobile health. It started out under the name Vibrent, but quickly renamed itself Vibrant Health. And it was under that name that PJ's company won a game-changing contract in 2015. The job was to help the National Institutes of Health build a mobile data gathering infrastructure for a giant research program called All of Us. That's a 10-year project designed to gather medical data from more than 1 million people around the United States to help doctors make more customized healthcare recommendations based on a patient's environment, lifestyle, family history, and genetic makeup. If you're going to try to recruit 1 million people into your research study and keep tabs on their health, and if those people are going to be from diverse backgrounds, and if they're going to be distributed around the country, then there's only one practical way to reach them, and that's on their smartphones. NIH asked Vibrent to build a mobile app and an online portal that would become the communications backbone and the central data gathering repository for the whole project. And now that NIH is 6 or 7 years into the All of Us project, it's clear that in some ways the project has leapfrogged over the rest of the U.S. healthcare ecosystem. It provides an easy way to gather and manage data from patients in the study and to monitor and interact with them while still protecting their privacy. As PJ puts it, the app meets all of us participants where they are, meaning on their phones. Technology like that still isn't part of the offering at most big health plans or hospital networks. Vibrant is actually working to change that by partnering with health systems, academic health centers, pharmaceutical companies, public health organizations, and research organizations to get its mobile apps distributed more widely. I wanted to have PJ on the show because I've long believed that our phones are going to be a key element of personalized and precision medicine for everyone. And I think the work Vibrant is doing with NIH and its other customers gives us a glimpse of that future. So here's our full conversation. PJ, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Harry. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. I was reading, quite a bit about, your company and everything. And I said, well, we really should have him on the show and make people aware of the organization and what you're doing and everything that it's, bringing to play well, we'll get into the details here pretty shortly. But before we talk about, your company, Vibrant, I'd love to hear a little bit about your path into the world of health research and mobile data, right? Because your career background is actually in consumer networking and telecommunications for companies like AOL and Sprint. Can you describe the path that led you into mobile technology for health research?
Thank you, Harry. Great question. And I am an outsider, as you mentioned. And I come from telecom, media, technology, and consumer electronics. I have been a product manager, a corporate strategy, business strategy, and overall consumer experiences background. So it was a very simple thesis 12 years ago that everybody realized that we're using our mobile phones for mobile video, mobile music, mobile commerce, mobile shopping. Why not mobile devices for mobile health? Why can't our mobile phones help each one of us with personalized health? So it was as simple as that of a conversation And because of my role at Sprint, I was working with 100+ institutions across the country who were looking at electronic health record vendors, consumer electronic companies. You had startups looking at specific remote patient monitoring solutions. And all of those, at least what I noticed was there was a gap that none of them are really going to take this more comprehensively. And people coming from healthcare really didn't understand telecom and how to make a mobile app reliable for millions of people. You can make a mobile app for 50 people, 100 people, 500 people, but you have to make it reliable. And that's the background I brought of of a creating systems that would work for large populations. And I was as you mentioned, outsider, and then along the way, learned a lot and on the job training, and here we are.
Yeah, but PJ, let's admit, crossing the chasm like that, especially 12 years ago, I'm sure was not I'm sure they didn't just with open arms take you in, right? Because when I was developing, I had developed a whole platform around location-based services, and everybody looked at me and goes, "You're a healthcare guy. You're not supposed to be here." And man, I mean, they made life hell because, you didn't fit, right? If you didn't walk like a duck and, quack like a duck, you're not a duck, sort of thing. So, but before you founded Vibrant, there was a company called Vignette, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah. Vignette.
What was the mission there? Was that different, or was that the, genesis of Vibrant?
Yeah. So like with any entrepreneur, when one starts something, one is not as structured about the branding, the name. You just want to get started, come up with a name, do a quick incorporation, you get going. It takes a day to do that. And really, it was as simple as that, to say, I want to start something, I just need a name to start it. And we just called it Vignette, and continued on. Later, we realized when we were talking to researchers and consumers and patients that Vignette is confusing. It doesn't convey, and it doesn't have an inherent brand value and recognizable value. So we conducted almost a 9-month exercise to better understand who we are, what we do, and what do we want people to remember about us. And we went to one key question that said, what do we really do? We help improve people's life. Well, if you help improve people's life, then what should it make them feel?
Right.
Vibrant. They should feel vibrant every day. That was a key insight after 9 months. And then we said, we cannot get Vibrant as a trademark or a URL. Well, let's do a Vibrant with an E. So that's the simple story about a very long process that led to the name Vibrant. And Vibrant, Vignette, we pretty much transition everything to Vibrant Health. So Vignette is more of a holding company and more of a paperwork.
Excellent. Interesting. Yeah, I usually pick up the Latin dictionary and try to find a good name for a new company. But reading quite a bit about Vibrant, it's clear to me that in some ways you can't really tell the story about the company without first telling, this whole concept of, precision medicine, especially at the National Institute of Health, and that project is called All of Us. And for the people who are listening that aren't familiar with that project, can you explain, what is it? What are its end goals? How big is the project, et cetera, or any other metric that you think is
Happy to. We talk about the NIH All of Us research program, but let's back up for a minute and really talk about the movement of precision medicine. And this was initiated and headed by Dr. Francis Collins at the NIH, who was one of the most admired and longstanding director of the NIH. And he had a vision 25 years ago about creating human genome sequencing technology, the DNA sequencing, a genomics work that started, that gave us tremendous amount of innovation in genomics technology. And his next vision was to say, how do we take the Human Genome Project beyond just genomics? Mm-hmm. And how do we take it more and more towards precision health? So this initiative was started in 2015. And along the way, there was sufficient funding to be able to build the next phase of Human Genome Project, which was then called the All of Us Research Project. And that was around utilizing broad sources of data from genomics to environmental data to lifestyles and behaviors, and to create a new approach, new paradigm for health research of the future. So it's not, while it is a single program, the significance of this in the world of decentralized and hybrid digitally enabled research and decentralized clinical trials is quite significant, because it so nicely translates and scales to these domains of decentralized and hybrid digital health enabled research. So that's the significance of it. And because it was totally new, these approaches didn't exist, there was no technology platform that was out there that could meet the need. This is probably one of the most significant outcomes of this project, is defining the clinical research and health research requirements for a technology platform. So that's what we ended up doing. We were awarded twice in a row the contract and the award from the NIH to provide this digital health platform to meet the needs of this 1 million people program.
Yeah. So you ended up winning that contract, I believe, in 2016 to build the online portal and mobile apps to gather all the participant data for the All of Us research program. I know that supporting All of Us is not the only mission of the company, but it feels like it was just a breakout opportunity to sort of step back and build something that could manage all that data and all those different data streams that are coming in. And this might sound like an obvious question, but why was it important, for All of Us to have a mobile collection platform in the first place? And I ask this question, I want to give you an opportunity to lay out the high-level philosophy about the roles of smartphones and other devices in the future of health research and health maintenance.
I think this goes back to what I was talking about 10, 12, 15 years ago, recognizing that mobile devices are becoming more and more powerful. They are becoming very powerful computers in your hand. Mm-hmm. So as the evolution of mobile phones has reached over 95% penetration across the United States, and these are smart mobile devices, people are spending more and more time on their mobile. It just seemed like a missed opportunity if health research and healthcare doesn't keep up with the trends of using other trends. So if people are using their mobile devices for banking, for Netflix, for Uber, for shopping, everything, then you would want to have a presence, a digital presence in people's mind share. So there was really no choice to say, you got to meet people where they are, right? We use this sentence called meet people where they are, whether they are geographically located in a rural community or away from any academic health center, or they're using apps on their phones. meeting people where they are, what they're using, what their pattern of daily technology utilization is, they should be able to adapt. We should be able to adapt to people's usage and behavior patterns. So it was really important to have that mobile. And then we also needed to make sure that its experience is comparable to, I just ordered an Uber, I just did an Airbnb or Lyft or what have you, that there is not too much disparity between a health research apps in the past, because they didn't have enough sufficient funding and they were not designed for million plus people. There was not enough investment to focus on user experience,
Right.
and functionality and the stability. So that being said, when NIH started to really right size the investment and invest what's really needed for a world-class, highly robust, scalable, and really looking at this mobile app and portals and other data collection and communications and engagement and experience as, look, we got to take this seriously and it needs to be current. Because which was the lacking part in pretty much every other health research app in the past or mobile app, they just were not current. They didn't appeal. They didn't have a good experience. So we focused on making sure it's going to be adopted, relevant, engaging, and match up and stay matched with the current expectations of user experience. So it was really important to have that. And the second thing I would say is that it's a lot more than data collection. It's implementation of entire workflow that is included in these mobile apps. It's a workflow product. We're trying to help people. We are trying to guide them to complete certain research study related steps and tasks. How do we make it easy? How do we make it accessible? Accessibility was a very, very important aspect. How do we bring these devices and experiences to underserved, underrepresented populations that have experienced high degree of health disparities? All of these goals were being accommodated.
Yeah, that's a lot of complexity. I mean, people may not have, or the listeners may not appreciate the level of complexity. Actually, it's interesting because I just published my new book and it's all trying to explain to the average person in an accessible way, like how technology can make a significant difference in how they can manage their own health or the healthcare, health of their loved one. So I
Nice.
understand how you have to really make it easy for someone to absorb that information and then do something with it. But so you couldn't have been the only one that was bidding on this. This is not a small or insignificant project. It has, high prestige, high PR, and of course, the risk that someone is taking by giving the contract out to a certain group is also high because it's their reputation. I mean, weren't there a lot of companies like Google and others that were thinking about health at that time? I mean, what did you accomplish before 2016 that positioned you to win this award? Or are there any good stories you can share about, winning the award?
Happy to. That was a very insightful question, Harry. And we almost, we look forward to actually answering this, because this really speaks to how did it happen, the story behind it. And it's, as said, nothing is overnight. It was a journey 7 years in the making. So when I left Sprint as a leader in the product management organization, as I mentioned earlier, that the use of mobile devices was picking up. And I was so convinced that, at least I believed, that I'm really well positioned to help solve it. So as I have spoken before, I took $400,000 from my 401k and started the company. I did not raise seed money, no Series A, no outside investor, and the debt came from 401k, and I did not raise external debt. The reason was simple. It was still early. It would have been too hard to convince an investor.
Mm-hmm.
And the belief was that if you're going to spend time convincing somebody to give you money, then you should be convinced yourself that it's going to work.
Right.
So show it to myself that I can do it. Yes, I am utilizing family, 401k retirement money, and wife allowed me to do that, and I'm really grateful for that. But that was a dream, and I had to follow my passion. So I did follow the passion, and it's a very long story, but in a nutshell, along the way, we came across what's called as Small Business Innovation Research grants from the NIH, SBIRs.
Yeah.
And we didn't know anything about grants. I was only 3 people at the time. We were just doing some contract services-based work to keep the company alive. And we came across SBIRs. We knew nothing about them. We went to school, we learned, and my colleague and I started writing SBIRs. And I think we wrote about 8 or 9 SBIRs, and we got 6 funded. So that gave us sufficient, it was about $6.5 million over 4 years. That gave us sufficient money to start to legitimately make a platform for digital health research.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, what happened, the most fundamental thing that benefited us is that we didn't realize at the time, we didn't know that. But in writing this SBIR grants, we always collaborated with academic health systems and researchers. And what we realized later is if you want to be in the point you were making earlier about what you encountered, that you are a healthcare guy doing a location-based services technology development. We realized later that we were doing good technology development, but the added benefit we realized later was really valuable is we collaborated with scientists and researchers during all of the SBIRs. That's when we learned the lingo, the requirements, how they talk, what they need, and how almost no digital technology or platform will achieve adoption and scale unless it really is working in concert with researchers and scientists and focusing on scientific value and not talk about digital health. Digital health is like a means to the end. It's not the end. So it's really the science. So we lead with science. So what we learned along the way, and then to your point, the RFP or the competition happened. NIH issued this request for proposals for the NIH All of Us research program. And we were about 6-7 people company at the time. And we started talking to people, academics, researchers, universities, and pretty much everybody told us that, look, there's no way you're going to win, because such awards always in the history of NIH have gone to academic organizations. Number 2, exactly the point you made, Harry, that you are a smaller organization. This is a very important initiative. We said, we hear you, but we're just going to, I just can't not apply. So what really came to the decision point is that because we had a 7-year history of working with the NIH and we had built a platform, they felt that they did not need to invest in basic building a platform, that the platform was there. We did demonstrations, we did, a lot of presentations. So there was comfort that Vibrant is the only organization that actually, you know what they say, show me, don't tell me?
Right.
We showed them. And because for 7 years, we were already collaborating with the NIH, we were a known entity, that we understood digital health and technology, but equally we understood scientists and researchers. So we had a good foundation and a starting point that they built on top of, and we were able to rapidly then scale.
Yeah, that's, you just went through the whole entrepreneurial, partially a little not normal thinking process of, let me take money out of my bank account and let me put it all on the line. And, this project is there. Oh, maybe we won't win. Let's try anyway, right? Sort of, you have to be a little on the edge to say, we're going to do this. And then worse, like I've been in this situation, you won the project and you're like, oh
what happened?
But I always term it as like the dog running after the bus and then it catches the bus. What do you do? What does it do once it catches the bus? You've got to actually now process this thing. I mean, I remember when we bid on a big contract in one of my last companies, and everybody was like, there's no way we're winning this. And we won it. And everybody started having heart palpitations. And I was like, what's wrong? They're like, we need people, we need space. I'm like, if that's all we need, like we could, like that's doable. And we literally doubled the size of the company in about a month.
Yeah.
And, just started chewing on the project and did a great job. But you have to take those incredible risks, which is interesting. But now, once you won the contract, going back to this, what were some of the biggest challenges of implementing this system? I mean, you're now in 2022. What do you wish you knew back then that you know now? Because so much has changed, right?
Yeah. Great question. I think I'll say two parts. One is it was exactly what you said, Harry, how you scaled. That's how we were scaling on a monthly basis, doubling. Where's the space? Where's the people? I need a front desk and I need an HR and finance person. Who's managing the money here? Who's going to invoice the customer? So we scaled, as they say. That's as they say, that's history. But we wish we did really, even though we were a smaller company, one thing we really did well before we even got the award is that we had implemented, even though it was a very small team of people, very nice, because for government, audits are very important. Security and privacy implementations are very important. And luckily, because we were working with the NIH over time, we had already understood that. So those were they sound mundane, but they're really important from a paperwork and contracting and awards perspective. So we did those well. I wish today, in 2022, that requirements were better understood back in 2016, 2017, 2018. But as I mentioned earlier, there is no other digital system that is so purpose-built for clinical research. So we were flying the plane while building it. I have heard that terminology so many times, analogy, never understood what it feels like. But we went through the journey of what it felt like to fly a plane and build it while we were flying it. So, but with that though, new requirements emerge and new things get added, and then that has an impact on the platform. Some of it is foundational. Some of it is takes a lot more effort to do. So wish that there was a more comprehensive scoping exercise, but there was just not enough time based on overall program needs. So we said, okay, as you said earlier, let's just start, let's solve the problems, and let's get the mind share going. And let's get people's imagination rallying around, because it was so new. There was
Yeah.
a translational and translational belief that you had to build. This can be done. So what is it? Show people what is it, that it can be done. It can be done at a national scale, right? There were so many big challenges and barriers we overcame that don't seem big, but there is nothing today, till today, that's a nationwide, decentralized, and hybrid digital health research infrastructure doesn't exist. So this is all that was built along the way. And then COVID came, and that helped us a lot in terms of understanding that going into a clinic is going to become less and less desirable. So how do you conduct remote virtual health research? How do you bring people who have been left behind, people in rural communities, people in lower socioeconomic status or diversity or race or ethnicity that have not perhaps trusted research? How do you bring them along, right? All those were not known at the time. So here we are with more than 80% diversity in this 600,000 people health research cohort that has been built. That was not as well understood, 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting to me. I mean, so many people, like if you start putting the dots together, you sort of see where the line is going. And it's so, still people can't see, what the end goal is. But I believe that this sort of technology approach and the way that things get paid for and so forth might has to change, but it can be a profound impact on how we manage patients and get data from patients, and then are able to react to patients with a system that allows for, decentralized monitoring or ways for them to touch base with the clinician or the researcher.
yes, I think one big change that is happening and needs to happen is that we always have treated health research outside of the healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Care and research have not come together. So researchers are being viewed by healthcare professionals as, oh yeah, okay, you're doing this stuff on the side. However, the technology, the mobile, the data, what that is changing is that as that research data gets more integrated with healthcare. So electronic health records now have interoperability guidelines. They have to make their data available, right? By the HHS and ONC mandates. And because of that, the research collected data is now easily being merged with genomics data, electronic health record data, wearable data, and other types of data sources that adds dimensions and adds new richness to data sets. So research and care have started to come together a lot more, and those lines will blur where daily.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the data, PJ, right? I mean, at one point, right, I had one data stream over, I had one, river here and I had one river here, and neither the two shall merge, right?
That's right.
But with this constant stream of data that's coming in from these devices into one centralized platform, whether the person is looking at the view and saying, yes, I need to manage this person for diabetes and call them up because the data looks like it's, going in the wrong direction, or the researcher is looking at it and saying, we're testing out this new device for diabetes, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's just the person looking at it that's looking at it differently. I don't believe that managing the patient should be, a completely different approach.
Absolutely. The other thing is, how many apps will a patient use for research? They have their health system app, they have this research app, that research app. So we believe that over time, a central app and the notion that you need a digital presence and a gateway to health research and healthcare, and with more and more portability and interoperability and standards, that's becoming more and more achievable now. So one destination, and whether you're looking at your healthcare records or you're participating in this diabetes research because there is a new diagnostic device or a therapeutic device or an artificial pancreas device or a continuous glucose monitoring device. Now, it is providing you care. It just happens to be under a research protocol. So in our estimation, research will become more of a protocol, but it could aid more and more with care as well.
Agreed. I mean, this is my whole, I keep thinking about a new book I want to put together that basically says there's going to be a massive consolidation or pushing out of, you don't need as many things to accomplish that goal. As a matter of fact, the goal will be better accomplished with things that are more centralized rather than 1,000 distributed apps that exist. And you can see that technology is driving it in that direction. I mean, technology changes the entire dynamics of the competitive landscape, and I'm not sure that everybody fully appreciates where it's headed.
Yeah,
we don't have 10 Googles. Right? So it's very interesting how healthcare is at such a nascent stage of that they cannot see where this is going ultimately, and the data is going to drive it there.
100%.
But let's stop here for a second. Like, all of us is going to run for 10 years, and I think that means 2026, if I did the math right, it's going to end. But up till now, there's got to be some really interesting things you've learned along the way. Could you talk about some of the surprising or interesting insights that have popped up so far using data that Vibrent helped collect?
Yes. So regarding the program for 10 years, that's the initial communicated message. But my hope and expectation, and this is a personal belief, I'm not representing the NIH in this conversation. I'm not speaking on their behalf.
Yep.
But I believe that something of this value, probably continues for a much longer duration. So with that being said, so I don't know whether that's 2026 is an end per se. It's just going to evolve over time with new research protocols and new needs, perhaps. In terms of what we've learned or what's surprising, I think one of the biggest one is percentage of people, the diversity that is represented in this cohort. That to me, although we had a high goal at the beginning of the program, but we actually achieved the goal and exceeded the goal, which is more than 80% of participants are underserved, underrepresented in biomedical research. And we achieved that goal. That is huge, right? Because when you look at pharma, when you look at any other academic health research, precision medicine research, every one of those has struggled and challenges with diversity, achieving diversity. And as a flip, achieving equity in research. So how can we create drugs, therapies, devices that work for all people, but don't include all the right representations during the research process? So that was a very, interesting and satisfying achievement and surprise to us. Another thing was this notion that electronic consent seems simple, seems straightforward. However, it's highly nuanced when you get down to it. So electronic consent has multiple layers. Number one is informedness. Does the person that's signing the electronic consent, is it like a mobile app, 500-page long, nobody ever reads and just clicks, type of a EULA, or is it truly informed consent? So we focused on informedness, making sure people understood what they were signing, what they were agreeing to. And then number two is doing some knowledge checks. Oh, you just signed this. Did you really understand? Let's do a knowledge check. And it's all designed to build trust.
Right.
So that was the second surprise to me in terms of we did not understand and appreciate the complexity and the value behind doing electronic consent right. It's ultimately to build trust with the consumer and the participant. Number three was that as we launched this program nationwide, the All of Us program, we were crossing all of the states in the United States.
Right.
If somebody's joining from North Dakota versus California versus Texas, Arizona, Massachusetts, each state has their corresponding requirements for achieving consent or for asking people for consent. So the electronic digital platform had to be aware of all 50 states, including California Bill of Rights, to make sure that every participant is compliant with their, and that the technology platform stays compliant with local and state regulations. That became a huge undertaking. So I can go on with many more, but these are just the first three.
So much for the United States of America, right? I mean, it's mind-boggling sometimes, all the rules of trying to implement care on a larger scale in the country. And I don't think the average person understands, like, you know, in some ways, I feel like we're spending money and time on, you know, these stupid rules, right? As opposed to making sure it's secure, making sure people are informed and getting them, you know, enrolled. But can you tell us a little bit more about the broader business today? I mean, your work with NIH, you know, must have set you up to be a provider of choice to other partners like drug developers, hospital networks, state or public health authorities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Happy to. I think, as you said, and we spoke earlier, that the attempt was to make sure that this is being built as a digital infrastructure. And that has come true because there are common requirements with other types of sectors as well. As you mentioned, drug developers slash CROs or pharma, academic health centers, health systems, public health research organizations. And all of those do require very similar capabilities. And, you know, no organization should only obviously depend on any one customer only. So we have been actively promoting and working with all of those different types of entities. But one thing we also want to be mindful of is that we do it right and we do it responsibly. Because going too fast or too much of growth too fast is also not a good recipe. So doing it responsibly, making sure customers are happy, and that then permeates. So, you know, we do enjoy the credibility and the respect, as you mentioned, because of our larger initiative with the NIH. But we want to make sure that we are very responsible to make sure we make every project and every customer succeed. And that's the path we are on.
So unfortunately, we've all been living with COVID for too long. I'm wondering, has the pandemic altered Vibrant's direction? I mean, I think maybe you can talk a little bit about NIH's Rapid Acceleration of Diagnostics, or RADx program, to develop a screening tool for COVID-19. I've seen claims that using digital screening to determine an individual's risk factor for COVID-19 can be comparable in accuracy to in-home rapid antigen tests. So I'm just curious if you can share any insights on that.
Yeah, happy to. So you're right. So about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, NIH started this RADx technology program. They had multiple RADx programs. RADx Up was underserved population. RADx Tech was about creating digital technologies and testing kits. And they had an RFP for selecting a digital platform to fund it, to create what you mentioned, a software-based, a screening-based mobile app tool, because of the same reasons we talked about earlier, that everybody uses mobile phones. So wouldn't it be great to have that? Our country, as you know, has very limited supply of testing kits.
Mm-hmm.
Testing capacity took time to increase.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime there is a hardware-based testing kit, whether it is COVID-19 or then the beta variant, the Omicron, variants change. Tomorrow there will be another something else. So pandemics are going to change, variants are going to change, and it becomes anything that's hardware-based, biology testing based, where you in a chemistry or a lab, it takes time to analyze, create a kit, mass produce them, get them out distributed. But if you had a mobile phone and a mobile app, that can be instantly be communicated to populations. So NIH had a request for proposal. They received over 200 applications, and this is all public information through press releases. And Vibrant was the single organization selected to fund development of this rapid diagnostic approach using a mobile app. So we had a very scientific-based approach where we wrote a protocol, we developed the screening tools, working with scientists and researchers. Scientists that know infectious diseases. They know the difference between flu and COVID. So that the questions were very scientific, and they were developed by researchers and doctors in terms of how they ask the question. So if I'm a patient in a clinic sitting with a doctor, what would they ask? How would they ask? So make sure there is scientific validity to that diagnostic and survey questions. And then there are algorithms behind the scene, AI/ML algorithms, that were looking at broader data sets from CDC, and that helped create. And then we validated it with 850 African-American participants in the Richmond area, working with Virginia Commonwealth University. So they were integrally part of the validation and usability and acceptability process. And then we submitted a final report to the NIH, and they were very happy with what we were able to achieve. So now let me go back to the question you asked about accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So we did show very high level of accuracy, almost matching a testing kit. However, when it comes to diagnostic, whether it's a test kit or a app, it does need because the test kits also have sufficient levels of false positives and negatives.
Mm-hmm.
So what we say is, what we really more focused on is that using a mobile app and a diagnostic device, using mobile apps that our organization created working with the NIH, it significantly improves accuracy and it significantly decreases false negatives. So people who were going undetected for COVID and causing the spread will be more easily able to identify. So this was a example where we increase diagnostic capability that made healthcare more accessible and reachable to people in a timely manner, and that reduced the cost significantly because people were not having to use as many test kits as they were doing without the app that we created working with the NIH. So those were the multiple benefits that came with it. And yes, it did increase the accuracy overall of the app and the test kit. So consumers and patients benefited from it.
So now you've written a lot about, in places like Forbes that, there's more need for artificial intelligence in public health, or tools, I should say. How do you use AI inside Vibrant? I mean, at a high level, how do you see machine learning and other forms of AI changing the role of big data in health research and drug development?
Yeah. So I think AI ML, I think of it as a tool, as a practical tool. A lot of people use very broad, field of AI ML. At the end of the day, it's data processing and data analysis. I can do it through statistical tools. I can do it through algorithms have existed forever in this world, right? So statistical algorithms are a form of AI ML. It wasn't just called AI ML. But I think what has happened is that the AI ML world became really important because of evolving data sets and continuous streams of data sets, which the world did not have to deal with 10 years ago or before that.
Right.
So that's the key differentiator. We just got awarded another project on AI ML where we are utilizing that to understand markers and digital markers. So in the field of consumer and health research, you want to be able to measure things like, I want to do engagement and retention with a participant, but I don't know whether this participant is likelihood of retaining as at on a scale of 1 to 10. Is it 5? Is it 2? Or is it 9? So you want to be able to analyze that and say, wait, this participant may drop out of the study. They're at the risk of impending dropout. What do we need to do? Maybe a study staff calls them. Maybe a research team member reaches out to them. Maybe they meet them in a church and in a community setting and understand why they are not continuing their participation. So to be able to understand these types of markers, when you have large data sets, becomes attractive to use AI ML approaches because they're evolving. Another thing is to understand biases and bias detection. That's a very good example of using AI ML for studying biases with health disparities populations, and then be able to do something about it. And these are large data sets, distributed, and it's really hard to do that with traditional algorithms or statistical approaches.
Yeah, I don't think most people realize healthcare is really new to this space. And if it wasn't for the Reinvestment and Recovery Act, which drove everybody to put in an EMR system, as well as the Affordable Care Act, we might not be having this same conversation right now.
Yes.
So people may not like big government, but when you need to cause a shift at that scale, sometimes you need big government to come in and cause that shift.
Yes, I agree with that totally. And that's what's happening, has happened and will continue to happen for electronic health record. You were saying so much for the United States of America. That is electronic health record are another example how fragmented our unitedness is across America, that unlike Europe, they have a national health system. It's easier for them, but they also have a single truth of, source of truth for everybody's electronic health record, and it's available and accessible. So it's the government that has driven, and the ONC, I applaud ONC and HHS for the vision to say that we're going to make standardized approaches for sharing electronic health record data across vendors.
Yeah.
And that was such a big benefit.
Critical. And some of the ways they're driving everybody there is changing how they get paid, which is, that's the easiest way to get someone to change their habits. But I was just reading recently, and I would love to see him, what the implementation plan is. Oracle bought Cerner, and Larry Ellison came out and said, we're going to make more of a interoperability of all these systems, which I'm curious to see that become more of a reality as opposed to just talking about it.
That is a very good, I applaud the vision and I applaud public statements about that. Let's see how well that can be done, because number of stakeholders, right?
Right.
Cerner is just one of hundreds of systems that exist across health systems that have clinical data, hundreds of systems.
Right.
Outside of EHR, there are institution-specific clinical systems. And I would love to see, if Oracle or Cerner can help achieve that vision, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm at least it's one step at, if one vendor does it, maybe others will try to move in the same direction. PJ, it was great having you on the show. I hope to keep hearing updates as the company evolves, and look forward to seeing the outcomes of the All of Us program and seeing the data published, so that we can keep, showing everybody that this is the right direction that we should take healthcare in.
Harry, thank you for having me. It has been a wonderful conversation and really insightful. You went into very logically into so many different areas and progressive storytelling. I really enjoyed our conversation and happy to help in any which way.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Harry. Take care.
Bye-bye.